Ozark Growers here. Tiff?
I'm Seb.
I'm Kara.
Today we're kicking off a series that is over organic versus synthetic grows, and we're going to talk about the whole thing, like the good, the bad, of all of the sides of. You're definitely going to get some opinions because we have opinions on those things that cause us to grow in the way we choose to grow based on what we think is best, and that doesn't mean that everybody will agree on all of those opinions, and that's fine too. That's the world we live in, and we love having those options. So today we want to just kind of run through some
pros and cons.
Yeah, definitely
pros and cons list.
All right, so let's go. So starting with hydro, what are the pros?
So pretty commonly, something that you'll hear from not only just hydro farmers, but most farmers in general, hydro yields more, typically. It's not always. Hopefully you can figure out a way to yield, maximum with any way you're doing, but typically hydro is going to give you a bigger yield. It's a lot of water.
Right.
Hydro grows also are commonly more sterile. We'll get deeper into that, but pretty much because they have to be. Usually when you are in somewhere that's using hydro, it's going to be, more sterile, a lot more cleanly feeling probably. Yeah, like a lab.
A lot of people say that they have more control over what their plants are getting because it's precise farming. So they measure out what nutrients they're going to feed their plants, and it's pretty thorough. And like we said, laboratory, less variables there.
Yeah.
And it's a cheaper start.
Yeah.
What's that mean?
Usually when people start looking at organics and soil specifically, they see the price tag and it'll shy them away because initial startup of a hydro grow, you're only having to pay for your little 6-inch cubes or your 8-inch cubes that you're growing in, or your cocoa for the time being. You're not buying soil that's gonna last you, years and years potentially. Hopefully.
And a disclaimer there, a lot of people have thought, that I've talked to at least, a lot of people have thought that with soil you have to throw it away each time you use it, but with the way we've been growing, you can just keep amending it and keep it going, so that's why...
And just gets better and better.
Yeah. So up front, it definitely is more to do organics and soil, but for the long run, you're minimizing a cost there. You're taking that out, so...
Regenerative. About being regenerative.
Yes.
Sure. So what are some well-known cons of hydro?
Kind of along with the pro of it being controlled, because of your controlled inputs, you're having a lot of work. Mixing, if it's a home grow style, you're doing a lot of mixing and a lot of individual plant per plant feeding, a lot of your work. Larger scale, you probably have a reservoir room with tanks and you're mixing feeds, you're buying feeds, whatever your salts and synthetics are.
It's mental as well as physical labor there. You have to do the math, of what you need and that kind of a thing. Some people enjoy that, but that's just a kind of a con in our eyes of hydro. Another con is the quality of the taste of the flower. So when you're growing with the synthetics, some people claim there's like a chem weed flavor there. Well, since you're using the same nutrients, you're maybe not getting some of that uniqueness of what soil can bring to your flavor palette and stuff.
Yeah, those secondary flavonoids, they're not present.
And we've talked about that multiple times because it's something that we're passionate about. The easiest way to bring this to people like me who aren't connoisseurs is the roadside tomato.
Yeah, the expression of the tomato.
Yeah.
So when you go to the grocery store and you buy the big juicy red tomato, and then you get home and you cut into it and it just tastes like water.
And it's white on the inside.
It's fleshy,
like
and it's not acidic, which is what you want in a tomato.
Yeah.
It should be acidic.
Yeah.
So you go to the guy on the side of the road, and maybe the look of that tomato looks a little different. It might have different coloring. It's not just that perfect red color.
Maybe it's smaller.
Yeah, it might be smaller, different shape because it's not grown, the exact same way in that control. But the flavor is just,
tastes like
10 times better.
$1,000,000.
It's like
explodes in your mouth.
it makes you not want to buy a tomato at the store again because
Right.
you know what you're getting, and that's the best way we can really describe.
Well, it's a very similar thing.
It's the same. It's same
happening
stuff.
with cannabis as well, and we're gonna definitely go deeper on that
in a
tangent
future video.
in the next video. But yeah, another thing with the hydro growing. So after you get done, say you have a big tank of water. This is maybe for more home growers, but you have a big barrel of water that you've been adding and mixing your nutrients in. At the end, you have to test the pH. If it's more acidic, you might add a little bit of a alkaline solution in there to make it more alkaline, and there's a strict pH regimen there. You have to make sure you're controlling that. With soil, there are microbes that are naturally buffering the pH for you. So if you're growing in soil, if you have a fungally dominated soil, then your pH is naturally going to lean to be more acidic, because when the fungus is breaking down organic matter, it releases certain acids that are just organic acids that help decay the matter. If you're growing in more bacterially dominated soil, it is going to tend to lean more alkaline, because there's specialized bacteria that turn the nitrogen into nitrates and that kind of a thing. Mm-hmm. So it gets super deep on that, but basically what you need to know is the soil is going to buffer itself depending on if it's fungally dominated or bacterially.
Yeah, you're not having to measure your pH as much. Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
for sure.
You just change your inputs to make it more fungally dominated or more bacterially based on what you're growing, because certain plants need bacteria, certain plants need the fungi.
We all need the fungi.
True. There's a little bit of both in each one. It's just dominated by one or the other.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Okay. We could talk about the soil next, though.
Sure.
Basically,
so traditionally, these are traditional pros and cons, not made up by us.
Yeah, we kind
these are what are out in the world. Yeah,
got what people were saying. So soil's a little bit easier if you're first starting out. You don't have to do as much chemistry and like adding up numbers, mixing up a solution to dump on your plants. The quality and the taste of your product at the end is going to be more like that homegrown tomato. It's going to have more flavor to it, be a little bit more unique and stand out, because you're using organics rather than synthetics and what everyone else is using, so it may stand out in that aspect. It's more forgiving because
it controls itself,
yeah, self-sustaining. You've got microbes in there working for you, basically, or they're just living in there doing what they're doing, and you affect them. Work. Yeah, they're doing their work. They're like little workers.
So for soil, I am in the con area, I guess. One thing is that your soil needs to be quality soil. So you can't just take any dirt off the street, because dirt would be inactive. You go outside and find a pile of something that's not really doing anything. It's not going to have the right microbes and stuff that you need inside it. So picking your mix, organic, if you're wanting to be all organic soil, heavy metal testing, there's different things that you kind of need to pay a little bit of attention to, just to make sure that you're not going to start off with a bad base. But once you get this initial foundation built, it's really its own life from there. It takes its own path.
Yeah.
It also has a slower grow rate, especially during the veg stage. That just has to do with the feeding,
Yeah.
You're kind of force feeding it a little bit with the synthetics there, so it's going to make it shoot up a little bit faster, and they're getting...
But with an organic, it's
kind of the slower uptake. This is there's people who claim that they can veg a plant in 5 days in soil. And
that's true too.
I hope everyone can. You know, it's not that every time it's slower and every time it's faster, but typically because of the excessive feed that's going on in veg, they do blow up in hydro a little more than they do in organics.
It's also less sterile. So at our grow, as you guys know, we use predator bugs to fight the natural
bad guys,
predators of the plants. Mm-hmm. So we're fighting all those bad guys with bugs, and some people don't want to deal with that. They just want to be able to grow sterilely without any bugs in their soil. Mm-hmm. They don't want to have to use those other bugs. They just spray them with pesticides.
They want to kill everything. Yeah.
Right. Which that's kind of a con for the hydro side, I would say, because when you're spraying with those pesticides, that's not great for sustainable reasons, for the environment, for the consumer. Mm-hmm. So that can be kind of a con for the soil, that we're having to use those predator bugs. And we also have like things like the H-Miles soil mites in there that are helping decay things that leave the plants alone. They're just down there working, but some people don't really enjoy the thought of bugs. Tiff is one of those people.
I don't like them.
And it is soil. I mean, moving it around, if you are moving soil, it's going to get on the ground. And
it's
in
messy.
Places it is messy, and that aspect of it is understandable.
Yes.
To some extent.
Yeah, I mean, if it were my ideal, if I was going to hang out in there all the time, of course I don't want bugs in there with me.
Yeah.
But
it doesn't bother us because they're natural. We've learned they're not harmful to us,
But I also know that they're doing a job that's super necessary, and the plants are better. I would still rather have that tomato from the roadside that might have a bug in it because it's going to taste better.
Yeah.
Because nobody sprayed it with...
Tiff just doesn't want to be the one doing it.
I don't want to do it.
But she can get around that.
But I like it.
Yeah. Since you're using soil, and we've been talking about the way these inputs are going in and out, faster feeding, this and that, if you do detect a problem in a plant, it typically does take a little bit longer to regain, the health and the vigor within that plant when you're using organics.
Because with the hydro, you can just inject you can just pour cow mag on it, and it'll come out of it in a few days.
But we have to, everything that our plants uptake, it has to be soluble for water. So when it's in the soil, it's just sitting there until these mites break it down, the water can make it run into the soil, and it actually can be uptaken by the plants. So it's kind of a process within itself. So kind of a con for the synthetics aspect and a pro for the organics would be shelf life. With synthetics, there are people who, not necessarily with synthetics, in cannabis, there are people who won't smoke aged weed because it's aged. They claim that it goes bad over time, and from a synthetic standpoint, this is true. Oftentimes, if you have something you've grown with salts in a few months, it's going to be discolored. It'll probably be a little bit brown. It's going to taste harsh. It is not the same smoke at all that it was in the beginning, whether you think it was good in the beginning or it wasn't good. It's not good in the end product. Using organics, because of the way it's uptaking all these nutrients and these natural things, it's got different flavonoids and terpenes in it to help it last longer. So we have been using medicine that we've had for 2 years, and it still tastes exactly the same, if not better. Some would claim better.
I would claim sometimes some of the aged stuff, it's better to me in some ways.
Yeah, and there's...
Just like fine aged wine or...
Yeah, no browning. It does not change. Not in the same sense. The flavor may change, but it doesn't worsen. It lasts a lot longer. So if that's something you're worried about, organics versus synthetics for your personal, organics will last longer on the shelf.
So with synthetics, the way that they're uptaking nutrients, you're giving them exactly what the plant is needing. So you're measuring out the calcium, the magnesium, phosphorus, nitrogen. You're precise farming and measuring that. The way that organics are getting their nutrients is we are first giving them microbes, and then the microbes are turning matter into nutrients for them. So we're putting teas on there, and the teas have those microbes in them. The microbes being bacteria, fungi, protozoa, nematodes, amoeba, all those guys are in there. And they're going to be the ones that are giving the plants the nutrients, not us. We're kind of taking that, eliminating that factor out of there, and just allowing nature to do its thing, basically.
Yeah. We're trying to make it available to these microbes.
So it's in there for them.
Yeah. It's all there. All the same stuff is there already. And we're hoping that the plant uptakes it when the need be. The plant takes it when the microbes can give it to it and when it needs it.
Yeah. It's kind of like, instead of, say we were to just hook ourselves up to IVs all the time and say, I don't want to eat food anymore. I'd rather get all the nutrients that I need for my body. I'd rather get it through an IV. That's kind of the difference. So we're eating, broccoli, all the foods, a steak.
What we want when we need it, and when we want it.
We're eating those foods that are rich in the nutrients we need, rather than measuring out what
protein and
exactly, these synthesized versions
and
of
feeding water,
schedule.
feeding it to yourself.
A schedule, it's not the same.
Intravenously.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah. So really, with everything that we're trying to do, it's trying to mimic nature the best the best we can. Our soil, our lights, airflow.
It's all balanced.
Everything in our facility, it's all trying to mimic organic nature as much as we can.
And there are bad forms of each type of organism. So there's parasitic and pathogenic fungi, bacteria, nematodes. There's bad versions of all of those microbes. However, whenever we're using organic living soil, we're creating an ecosystem within the soil in which the bad guys cannot survive. So they're going to be eaten by a plethora of different organisms in the soil. The bad organisms thrive in an environment created by dumping the synthetics and the chemicals on your
chemical
plants.
feed on it, because that kills the good guys.
It kills them. Exactly. Look at a worm. A worm is not going to survive in those environments. They absorb everything through their skin. So, if you put them in there, they're not gonna be able to live, and they're adding a lot of beneficial things to that environment. Kind of an analogy for the even smaller guys in there that you can't see with your naked eye.
Right.
If all of those macroorganisms that are good start disappearing, that's probably a sign that you're missing the microorganisms as well.
Right.
So, no, you're not killing every single microbe when you're using the synthetics, but you're eliminating the good organisms and allowing the bad guys to thrive in there.
So most of this information that we have is from our own research and development, some of that being
podcasts.
There's lots of avenues to gain this knowledge. And so we want to shout out some of the people that have been putting their knowledge out there that we've absorbed, and also some of this is from trial and error on our own end. So it's a combination of all that.
Yeah, and these guys.
Let's talk about some of these people that have been really beneficial and helped us. Like, okay, now that idea is cool. We'll dig in more on that or this or something.
They kind of bring it to the science, rather than just being bro science or something like that. These guys show how it's actually happening, and the deeper dives into it. So if you're more interested, like we were, and you want to look into where we're getting our information, this is a great place to start, and it can lead you down a lot of rabbit holes. So the first source we're going to cite is the Future Cannabis Project, and the Brian and Marco Show, Leighton Morrison, Organic Alexa, Steve Cantwell, Tim McCormick,
Hypha Grown. With Organic Alexa with Hypha Grown.
Yes. Jeff Lowenfels, he wrote Teaming with Microbes, Teaming with Nutrients, and Teaming with Fungi, Teaming with Bacteria. He wrote lots of books on this stuff. Dr. Elaine Ingham, she's kind of the person who rediscovered the soil food web.
Yeah.
Awesome.
That's
awesome.
Yeah, she might have even started it all. She might have even started it all. Or helped a lot, but...
Valen, the soil guru, for hooking us up with our soil and for always being there with our questions and help with us. He's great.
Luna all day, In My Beneficials, Ryan Sprague. These are all people who we look up to in the organic cannabis world, and we are constantly researching and learning from these people.
Yeah.
Shout out to them.
Shout out. So thank you guys for watching. Stay tuned for the next video in this series.